All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, the digital education partner of the Toronto Zoo. Now, all spring long, we featured all sorts of amazing programs around the zoo, from conservation to camouflage, giraffes to hippos, all sorts of amazing creatures, and it was such a fun time. So I'm especially excited to dive in with a special summer program with Kyla Greenham. So she is the Curator of Conservation and the Environment at the Toronto Zoo, easily one of the coolest job titles in the whole world, and I am so excited to dive in with her today at the Aurora Research Station, the Aurora Borealis Station, at the Polar Bear exhibit to learn more about the climate initiatives happening at the zoo and what the zoo is doing to help mitigate climate change and educate the public about this really, really essential topic. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kyla. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away.
Hi, everybody. It is so great to be here with you today. As Jesse said, I'm Kyla Greenham, and I'm the Manager of Conservation Programs and Environment. And basically what that means is I deal with the zoo's sustainability platform. Everything that our zoo does, everything that we offer to our guests, everything that we do for our animals is to promote protection of the environment. And the first thing we need to do as an operation is we need to reduce how our zoo and what we do with the zoo has impact on that environment. So it's my job to work with all areas to ensure that we embed sustainable actions, green initiatives, and try and reduce our carbon footprint. So today, I'm going to try and show you a few different green initiatives that we've implemented here at the zoo to reduce our carbon footprint. Try and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, our energy reduction, water saving measures, different ways that we can actually put back into the environment and really increase biodiversity, decrease the negative impacts of contamination and pollution in our environment, and just overall help protect and rebuild our environment. So here at the Aurora Borealis Station, we have a message of climate change. Climate change is happening. The effects of human populations, our lifestyles, all are causing climate change to happen. So we as a society need to do things to actually reduce that impact. Our Aurora Borealis Station and our polar bear exhibit is powered by renewable energy through these PVC solar panels on the roof system here. This is a great message for the zoo because the polar bears in this exhibit, their counterparts out in the wild, are suffering from climate change, causing the loss of sea ice that is very valuable for them to feed and reproduce on an annual year. So when we can actually reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions going into the environment, we can reduce the amount of climate change that is happening. Renewable energy does just that. It's taking a source from solar, and it is not using fossil fuels to produce that energy. So inside our Aurora Borealis, we have fans for our guests so that they can get cool on a hot summer day. Those fans are run 100% by the PVC solar panels. And there's two types of solar panels here at the zoo. We have the PVC, which actually create an electrical current to run electrical systems. And for our staff in our administrative building, we have our thermal solar panels. And they actually heat the water directly that run through and are heating the water for our showers at the end of the day so that we can go home and not take anything that might be here at the zoo home to our pets or our families. The PVC panels here also run the air conditioners that are in the habitat for our polar bears so that here at the zoo in the summertime when it might be plus 26 like it is today, they can actually stay nice and cool where they're more used to cooler temperatures. Although here at our current temperatures, the polar bears in their native habitat in Northern Ontario and Southern Arctic are used to reaching those temperatures in the summertime. So it's not too far outside of their native ranges. We just like to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible. So by using these renewable energies, we have been able to reduce the amount of fossil fuel energy sources we use here at the zoo and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Other options that I'm going to show you today, which we're going to head towards, is using nature-based solutions such as floating wetlands to increase biodiversity and clean waterways, as well as looking at ways to reduce the amount of energy we're using at peak time during the day when all of us really want to be running our air conditioners in the hot summer sun. So let's head over to our floating wetlands and take a look at how they're working. At this time, if you do have any questions about our solar panels or other things we might be doing, feel free to ask those.
Fantastic. So for our entire audience on YouTube, if you guys do want to share questions in the chat bar, we'll happily pass them to Kyla as we head over to the wetlands. By the way, it's so nice to see the Toronto Zoo open. I mean, everyone can go online, check out more about the zoo, its opening schedule, all the amazing things you guys have going on at torontozoo.com. So I encourage everyone to check that out when we're done today's broadcast. But Kyla, one of the questions that I have as we're on our way to our wetlands is, this is a whole other approach of dealing with climate issues, and we're going to learn a lot about that in just a minute. Are there other examples of solar panels throughout the zoo? Are there other sort of wind turbines, other uses of renewable energy that you guys are doing on site or planning to do in the months and years to come?
So right now we just have the PVC solar panels at our Aurora Borealis and the thermal solar panels that are in our administrative building for the hot water. We do have plans to look at a larger scale solar panel installation, but they're a little bit more long term because we want to optimize the use of our mechanical systems first before we start building a larger, more expensive system on site. Other renewable energy that we do have on site, we do have windmills in our waterway, which we're going to visit. We have bubblers in there to increase oxygenation and turnover of the water to keep it clean. And we've converted the old compressors that were electrical to wind generated power. So all of the bubblers, there's 3 windmills on site, and they run our bubblers to keep the waterway very oxygenated. Finally, other ways we use renewable energy is for some of our systems and all of our conservation breeding programs here at the Toronto Zoo, we purchase renewable energy from companies like Bullfrog Power. So our lemur exhibit, which we'll visit, is powered by Bullfrog renewable energy that can come from biogas, solar energy, or wind generation. And that allows us to compensate for the type of electricity that we use and ensure that renewable energy is put into the Ontario hydro grid. So all of our conservation programs are carbon neutral to minimize the impact of having those programs here at the zoo. And some of our exhibits are carbon neutral as well.
What a
thoughtful at our waterway.
Go for it, yeah.
The waterway is 8 different ponds here at the zoo. And they are an aesthetic value for our guests. It's really cool down by the water. It gives a different scenery as they move around the zoo. But for us here at the zoo, they're very valuable because they are our stormwater management system. Essentially, when we get really heavy rainstorms, they collect the water at the zoo site so that it doesn't flood out. So our habitats aren't flooded, and some of our animals that don't normally swim would be swimming. So it's a way for us to protect the property. Over the years, just because we've been around for nearly 50 years now, this waterway has accumulated sediment that has come off the grounds, and we want to make sure that it's as clean as possible. So we're looking at nature-based solutions in order to clean the waterway. How does nature make sure that our rivers and streams and lakes stay nice and clean, despite some of the things that we might be adding to our ecosystems? So we've done some wetlands in the past. We've looked at oxygenating our ponds with the windmills, but now we're installing these floating wetlands. And essentially what it is, it's a floating platform in the middle of a waterway that has native aquatic and terrestrial plants growing on it. So we've planted them up, we've put them out into the waterway, and the goal of that is the roots will grow through the media that's causing the platform, and they will absorb any additional nutrients that are in the waterway and turn that into plant material, bake it into the leaves and the flowers and the buds, and actually remove it from our ecosystem. Finally, there's bacteria, natural bacteria that will grow on the roots of the plants, and those bacteria will eat and absorb and utilize some of the nutrients as well. So it's taking it out of the system and making the water as clean as possible. So it's quite interesting and fun to do these. It's a very simple way that we can actually increase the diversity, so biodiversity, by increasing the number of different types of plants that we're using in there. We're creating seed for the ecosystem. They're native species, so we're not introducing anything new into the environment. We're just giving a platform for these things to grow and absorb carbon dioxide and absorb nutrients. And then for our guests, we have a very pretty, very interesting floating platform in the middle of each of the ponds. And in the springtime, we'll get different flowers, and towards the middle of the summer and the end of flower, we'll get a different series of flowers that will be growing on there as well. Other things that floating wetlands do, besides just cleaning the water, is they provide habitat for wildlife. So we've seen ducks actually nesting on these floating platforms in the springtime and actually hatching out a few new ducklings. We have different types of bugs that will use this area, and frogs and turtles will also use them as a nesting or a sunbathing area. Oh, exactly here on one of our floating wetlands that's getting ready to be pushed out into the middle of the river. We have some little nesting ducks taking a rest. So it's interesting what we can do to help protect our environment if we just look to nature and utilize how it works. It's simple and it's very effective. So that's one different type of things that we're initiating. We're going to move on to another source of energy that we're using here at the zoo that benefits most of our guests, but they don't even realize it. So let's head to our other area.
Fantastic. Well, what a nice opportunity to highlight rewilding, to highlight these nature-based solutions. I'm excited to head to our next area of the zoo, but it's something that we've seen increasingly with a lot of conservation organizations. So it's really touching that you guys are doing it, and I know a lot of other groups in the city of Toronto and across Canada are starting to implement these projects as well. One quick question we had from a member on YouTube is, what does the CALL team stand for? We've got your banner of the day as the CALL team, all these great shirts behind you guys with the youth. So tell us a little bit more about that and how you get involved.
Hi guys, that's a great question. So it's our Climate Action Learning and Leadership team. So we have an intern opportunity this summer, and we have 4 interns that'll be here for a period of 12 weeks. And then these are some of our youth participants, our climate champions. So what they're doing is they're here for a period of 4 weeks, learning about the zoo as a conservation organization. And they're gonna culminate with a project, a community-based project, where they're gonna help educate, do outreach in their community to share the message of biodiversity and climate change. So this is a new program, a grant-funded program at the zoo this year, and we're hoping it's going to be an ongoing program. So keep your eyes peeled on the Toronto Zoo website, and with any luck, we'll have this as a continuing program every year.
Well, fingers crossed, and how cool is that? Such a nice opportunity to highlight this in the summer with you guys, so thank you guys so much. Before we end up in our next spot, one of the questions I wanted to ask is, how can individual people at home get involved with these sorts of efforts? You guys are talking about bringing back native species, providing these habitats for wildlife. Is there something that anyone can do, wherever they might be joining from? We've got people joining in from India right now, around the world to listen to this broadcast. What can you do at home to do something alongside what you guys are doing?
There's lots of different things that you can do at home. First of all, look at your own backyard. What kind of gardens do you have? What type of plants do you have in those gardens? Are they native to your area? By planting more native plants and ones that flower in the springtime, you can help for pollinators and make sure that you're providing habitat in the springtime for pollinators. There's a program called No Mow May. So in the month of May, you can commit to not mowing your lawn and allowing those yellow dandelions to grow. Dandelions are usually the first flower of the season for pollinator species. And by allowing them to grow in your garden or in your lawn, you're giving the opportunity for those first emergent bees to collect pollen and start the pollination process. There's always conservation authorities. There's NGOs, grassroots organizations that have lots of great ideas. So you can physically get involved by contacting them, contacting the Toronto Zoo's volunteer program and learning more about those opportunities. And there's shoreline cleanups. There's opportunities to actually create floating wetlands with your local town or with your conservation authority. It's contacting what's around you, the grassroots organizations, your municipal government, as well as other NGOs, non-government organizations, environmental organizations. They have lots of programs that need volunteer and needs financial support as well. So whatever you can do, if it's an hour a day, if it's an hour a month, we really take anything And there's lots of different opportunities out there for different projects to get involved in. Looking at skill sets, you could be a student that wants to learn more about the environment and decide what type of environmental field you want to get into. It's great to get involved in those organizations to learn more about what they're doing. But even if you're in university or you're someone who is working and has some excellent skill sets in engineering or aquatic sciences or biology, even providing your expertise is very valuable to us to expand our knowledge and the ability to expand our network to do more opportunities. Okay,
Fantastic.
so
Thanks, Kyla.
our third opportunity that we've implemented here at the zoo is what we call our ice bears. Ice bears is a play on the term, but it's related to our polar bear program here at the zoo. These mechanical systems that you see in place, they're a program called Ice Energy. They're normally out of California and work best in tropical environments. But the principle behind it is trying to convert your energy use from daytime use when most businesses and individuals are maximizing the amount of energy they're consuming to a period of off-peak. So overnight, usually what happens is because demand is lower at those times, as most of us are sleeping, the price of energy is cheaper. The amount of energy being used on the system is not as high and is more readily available. So these systems, inside them are a series of coils and a big vat of water. At night, when energy is cheaper and when we're not having high demand for energy use, we will freeze the block of ice inside each one of these. And then during the day, as the sun hits the system, it starts to melt and you get a transfer of heat, or in this case, a transfer of cooling. And the ice will cool the fluid inside the coils, and that fluid is directly connected to our air conditioners in the Caribou Cafe, which is the building right behind us. And it runs our air conditioners all day during the summertime for our guests. So they can come in and enjoy a nice cool period on a really hot day in our restaurant, and they don't realize this is a carbon neutral system. So it is technology. It's the more advanced technology that uses new ideas, but we wanted to start it here at the zoo as a pilot project. So we are one of 5 locations across Toronto that have these systems. When we put them in, we looked at the cost of purchasing a system, we looked at the cost of installation, and then we looked at our savings that we'll get in energy use over the course of their use to see if this was a good technology for our climate for here in Toronto. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as what we planned. The systems are very expensive to install. And so the recuperation of savings in energy by diverting our use to off-peak hours does not really pay back the system. We like the system because of the principles behind it, and it does function properly and really, really well to run the air conditioners. But to save money for Toronto, it's not effective. This system is great if you're in California or the southern United States or Mexico or over in Africa, areas where you have tropical heat temperatures majority of the year. You can really save money. You can save your GHG emissions, your greenhouse gas emissions, and you can really save the amount of energy that you're using in those areas. So it is cost effective. It is a really cheap system for those areas, and we highly recommend that municipalities and governments really look at this system in those areas to offer cheap, reliable electricity and air conditioning for those climates. So we look at how we're introducing different technologies and green initiatives here at the zoo. One of the key things we like to do is we relate them back to our animals here. Everything has to have a message, and everything should be related back to the message associated with the animals. So these 3 technologies that we've implemented here today that I've shown you are all within our Tundra Trek. And it's not everything that we have here within our Tundra Trek, but it all ties back to our message regarding climate change and how we as a society can and do have the ability to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and reduce our energy consumption, thus mitigating the effects of climate change. So the animals here have a message to go out, and that message is supported by the actions we're taking to reduce our carbon footprint and relate people to understand their choices in their daily life can make a difference on the wild, the animals in the wild, and the environment. So I'm going to put it back to you, Jesse. Are there any questions?
Fantastic. Well, we're really excited to take some live questions from your call team youth there as well. So let's make sure we do back and forth between you guys and our live groups on YouTube. But one question, you talk about making sure that people get involved and they can see themselves in these sort of things. So you talk about using energy at off-peak times. Is there something that anyone at home in Toronto could do right now to utilize energy in that way?
That's a fabulous question. This is something quick and simple that everybody can do. When you are doing your household laundry, choose to do it after 7 o'clock at night. You can put your clothes out on a clothesline if that's permitted in your area. But by running your washing machine and your dryer after 7 o'clock, you're going to save money on your electricity bill, and you're shifting your use to off-peak times. This happens on the weekend as well. So even though we're not charged high peak time during the Saturday and Sunday, by shifting it to 7 o'clock in the evening or later, that's when you're really maximizing off-peak demand on our electrical grid. Think about running your dishwasher and your washing machine and maybe a TV at the same time. They're all high energy use systems. So can you alter when you're actually using those systems? Don't run your dishwasher and your your washing machine at the same time. Try and run them separately. You could do it subsequent, so one and then the other, like overnight when you go to bed, turn on your dishwasher and then it's nice and ready to go in the morning. But by reducing how many items, large energy use items you're running at a single time, will allow you to reduce that demand for electricity. Other things is if you have an electric vehicle, coming home and charging it at night, there's questions about whether that's going to increase our demand. Yes, it will increase demand as more and more people get electric vehicles, but we're also plateauing the demand on the grid so that we're not getting as high a peak during the day and then a low peak at night. We're kind of leveling it out. So we'll all benefit that way when we can level out the use over the course of a single day. Other things is if you have different things that your children are doing or different activities, again, looking at time of day, 7 o'clock or when you go to bed, run it overnight and it's ready in the morning is a great way for you to shift your use of electricity to off-peak time. And it saves you on your electricity bill.
It sure does. I've been doing laundry at night for years now just because of this very thing. And it's a lot of municipalities in Ontario actually the hydro company will send out things showing how much you'll save for programs like this. I'm really glad you mentioned electric cars too. If you guys have electric cars, even better. A great way to make a positive difference. Kyla?
So here at the zoo, we do have electric vehicles. We are in transition period where we're trying to increase the number of electric vehicles, but we're proud to say that 46% of our transit fleet is green vehicles, which is fantastic. Our target is to get that to 75%, and that will be dependent on the different types of electric vehicles that are available for us to use in the different types of vehicles we use here at the zoo.
Fantastic. Good for you guys. Toronto's transit system, too, has been going with hybrid vehicles, looking into an electric fleet soon as well. So it's really nice to see a lot of efforts happening in the city to make a positive difference. Yeah. Robert and Greg, I know you guys are filming behind the scenes. If any of our youth there have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. If not, I've got several others ready here on YouTube. Let me know.
Yeah, we can take the questions from YouTube.
Okay, perfect. So my next one is, in terms of resources, so you highlighted the importance of understanding climate change, what it's doing, its impacts, how to take action. For me personally, 2 books that have really made a positive difference, Drawdown, which is also an amazing online resource, and Under a White Sky are just fantastic books to read about climate change. Are there any resources you would recommend, books, websites, anything where people can get the up-to-date best information, Kyla? No pressure.
Pressure. At this point, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think those two resources that you said are fantastic books for people to read and understand. The Toronto Zoo has links to many different organizations that have lots of resources as well on what we can do. And I know the Natural Resources Canada also lists a number of resources that are specific to us here in Canada. So addressing some of the service requirements that we have in terms of infrastructure and the different types of energy sources, looking at the climate, so the different climates that we have across Canada and what works best in each of those climates, because what works in BC may not necessarily be the best fit here in Toronto,
Right.
or might not be the best fit out in Nova Scotia. So looking at our federal government's resources to find out specifically how each of our own areas are being impacted by climate change, and then looking at the resources that are available to address those specific things, such as flooding or increased heating temperatures. On the east and west coast, they have to deal with rising ocean levels and erosion. And we're all going to be dealing with this as a different level across Canada. And they're a great resource to tell us and help us address them individually.
Yeah. I'm really, really happy you mentioned that. So when I was a kid, I've been in Toronto my entire life, and when I was a kid, there really wasn't any major flooding, and that's one of the big issues that we have in Toronto, as well as heat. It was a lot cooler in the summers when I was a kid, even over 20 years than it is now. So I'm curious, at the zoo, are there plans in place to deal with increased flooding risk, increased temperatures? I mean, the climate is changing rather rapidly here, and whether at the Toronto Zoo or zoos in general, I'm curious how that relates to how animal enclosures are built, how people are going to engage with the zoo. I know it's the early stages of this, but are there any plans or discussions along these lines?
Well, that comes back to related to the floating wetland project directly. As I said, the ponds here at the zoo, they're actually our stormwater management system. They're not natural ponds. They were man-made here when the zoo was first opened, and they are to collect all of the water on the zoo to prevent it from flooding. So by addressing the concerns we have with the quality of our waterway right now, what we're doing is we're preparing ourselves to be able to adapt and adjust to those higher levels of water that we might be seeing from flooding. We're looking at natural-based solutions such as bioswales, which are essentially a garden that have high filtration rates to get water to seep back into the ground naturally at a faster rate, to try and address in areas that aren't directly related to our waterway and reduce that impact of erosion. Then when it comes to protecting our habitats and our animals, we are looking at, when we do renovations in each area and assessing how flooding or hotter temperatures are going to impact the animals, we are embedding those kind of changes within the habitat, whether it's increased service to sewer systems to prevent flooding in the area, inspecting those systems on a regular basis to make sure that they're not getting clogged up by debris and just leaf litter, so that they can handle those higher flow rates, and making sure that we have the contour of our land to divert water away from the animal habitat into an area that's more naturalized, because we have 700 acres of space here and less than 400 of it is actually part of the zoo. The rest is all natural. So can we divert some of that water into the natural areas so that it can naturally be reabsorbed into the ground? We are looking at more air conditioners for some of our habitats for animals that need to be cooler when the temperature gets warmer. And for the winter time, definitely making sure that our winter habitats for those tropical species can better retain the heat. And then looking at what energy sources we're using for the air conditioner and the heating system to reduce the amount of fossil fuel sources that we're using. And that will go back to when we have optimized our use of energy here at the zoo with our current mechanics, then looking at a larger solar installation or renewable installation that can make us a carbon-free facility.
Holy, the zoo chose the right person in you. You give the most thorough answers with absolutely everything. I love it. I wanted to ask a question sort of from my own experiences at the zoo. When I was a little boy, I came to the zoo and you guys had elephant poo-poo paper, and it was the coolest thing ever. I absolutely adored it. And I understand that you guys are possibly partnering with to use your poo for something power related as well, with biogas on site. So if we could learn a little bit about that, that would be amazing.
That's a fantastic question. You can't get elephant poo paper here at the zoo, but you can get panda poo paper in our gift shop. So that's still available. But yes, we have an agreement with a company called Zoo Share. They were developed to actually build a biodigester here at the Toronto Zoo. And that biodigester takes organic materials from grocery stores and organic food waste, as well as the 3,000 tons of manure waste we produce here at the zoo with our animals, and converts that into renewable clean energy that they sell through the FIT program to the Ontario Hydro Grid. So it is now operational. It's something that has been in the works for over 10 years at the zoo, but we are very excited for Zoo Share that they have been able to turn the switch and they're supplying electricity to our Ontario Hydro Grid. It's a 500 kilowatt system, and that can supply an entire neighborhood with clean renewable energy every single year. And we're so proud to be part of that and be able to take this organic material that we naturally produce with our animals being here on site and create electricity for Ontario, clean electricity.
How cool is that? I have to go back to a stat that you said very early on in that answer. How much poo is created at the zoo? Like, what is the volume?
Here at the zoo, we have over 400 species of animals. We have over 5,000 individual animals, and they produce over 3,000 tons of manure every single year.
Holy, that is a lot. Well, good for you guys putting that to good use. That's very impressive. You can fertilize all the fields of Ontario as well. It could be like a mix thing. Maybe we'll discuss that in future programs. Kyla, this has been so much fun. I just want to wrap up really with now that the zoo is open, you've got the call team there. You have these amazing volunteer opportunities, internships, programs. What would you recommend if someone was coming to the zoo today? How could they go and learn more about this? Today, we've had the chance to showcase it virtually to this wide audience. You've got this amazing call program. What are other ways that people can come to the zoo and really engage and learn with all this amazing stuff you've shared today?
Well, one of the things that you can do is we do have lots of information about each of the technologies that are on site that go into detail on how these work. We have a website that you can check out. It's Going Green on the Toronto Zoo website, and it goes into details on all those projects and different programs that they can participate in, such as our Phone Apes program. This is a simple one for everybody. We want to encourage people to ensure that they recycle all of their electronic waste, their old cell phones, their old tablets, and TVs and computer systems, because the tantalum that's found in all of our electronics is destroying habitat in the mining of it out in Africa. So our cell phone program, when you recycle with us, we get paid for recycling those programs and make sure that those materials, the plastic, the gold, the diamond, the copper, the lead, anything that's in those cell phones gets recycled properly, put back into our commodities market so other manufacturers can use it into new products. And the money we collect from the recycler then gets sent over to Africa to support 3 different types of conservation programs. We support veterinary services for sanctuaries and for injured animals over in these rainforests. We support sanctuaries that take in orphaned or injured animals and rehabilitate them and then release them back into the rainforest. And we support restoration projects with those funds to go into a mining site that has been closed down and replant forests to get it back to a lush green forest that will support biodiversity, support animals, and support gorillas. So that's a very simple one, and you learn about that up at our gorilla habitat. You can learn about being an ocean-wise purchaser and how to purchase properly sustainable seafood when you go to eat fish and seafood. That's available information at our different habitats. And up at our Rang habitat, you can learn about the palm oil and what you can do to better understand palm oil use in your products and purchasing sustainable palm oil. So those informations are there, and they tell you how to get involved in some of the programs that we have. Our website will tell you how to get involved in some of our green programs, and our volunteer program will definitely, through tours, tours like this one today, as well as different initiatives within our gift shops that are associated with conservation. Will tell you how to become involved, who to contact, who to email or phone, and become involved in those programs.
Holy, what a wide array of amazing stuff. The Phone Apes program is like the most noble thing of all time. Like you really did, complete the circle there with all sorts of great stuff. I did bring that up while you were talking about that on the page below. So if people want to check out the Phone Ape site, it's incredible. I've donated some of my old cell phones or given up my old cell phones at the Toronto Zoo before. An incredible program. And if you want to see more about their green initiatives generally, check out torontozoo.com/TZ/green. All sorts of great stuff there. Amazing stuff that you guys are doing at the zoo. And a real testament to the fact that zoos have become the hubs of conservation in the world. The Toronto Zoo is a real stalwart in this regard. It's why we have so much fun partnering with you guys in these programs. But really, wherever you are around the globe for this broadcast, check out your local zoo, see what they're doing, see how you can get involved. It's such a special opportunity to give back and save wild species and places. Kyla, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful time with the call team over the summer and doing more great programs. And however we can support, we are all in.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much, Jesse, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
All right, have a wonderful rest